Hi everyone, it's Jakey again. Was not expecting to make a video this soon, but when I found out that we're gonna finally have Empyrean items in the login campaign for the first time in over 3 years, so we can all fire up our mules and get a free Empyrean weapon, or at least part of one, I thought it would be a good time to make a tier list for Empyrean weapons and try to decide what I should be spending my login points on. I will also talk a bit about how to optimize the amount of items you can get from your login points at the end of the video. So check that out if you want as well. Reminder, this tier list is mostly just for fun. And obviously we can't really directly compare a lot of these weapons because they're for different jobs. So I'm going to try to compare them in their relative usefulness to the jobs that can use them. So S tier would be a weapon that you're using the vast majority of the time on that job and makes a large impact for that job. Whereas a D tier would be a weapon that makes very little impact and you rarely use. So first here we're going to start out with the harp, and I don't think anyone's going to be surprised that's S tier. It gives you access to an additional song above and beyond what you can get with any other weapon for a bard. It's absolute game changer. Uh, Also, occasionally comes in handy just for being a harp, um, and still giving some duration bonuses with the harp. Uh, of course, any serious bard knows what you do is you put the songs up with this, and then you override it using the Galahorn for far more potency. Okay, the shield. Um, I think it definitely was an S tier weapon. Undoubtedly. Uh, it's become a bit more debatable now since the shield update because pre-win especially is a lot closer to it for physical damage, and as long as you're not fighting super high level opponents, pre-win can be just as good for the most part. However, pre-win does have a number of disadvantages, especially if you can't keep your prizal up for some reason. And again, if your enemy is too high level, the pre-win's block rate will fall much faster than the O-chain. So uh, I still think it is your best physical uh, shield for blocking physical damage. Aegis, of course, still having an advantage against magic. Uh, so, I mean, I suppose you could argue you're kind of splitting your time 50-50 between this and Aegis once you have them, but it is still very impactful. Perhaps not as impactful as it used to be. It's got to be either bottom of S tier or top of A tier, I think. But I'm gonna just put it in S for now. Okay, great sword. It is the best Dark Knight weapon, um, in the vast majority of scenarios. I think that makes it an S tier. Uh, Sakpada, like before Sakpada, it was a lot closer between it and Liberator. Sakpada has pulled it away, so it's now well ahead of Liberator. Um, I think that's got to be S tier. For Dark Knight primarily. The other jobs on it don't really care about it. Great Katana. Another S tier. It's the best weapon for Samurai. You will want to get Shining One as well for a piercing damage option. That's also very good. And the Aeonic Great Katana does have some scenarios where it can beat this out, but not by much. If you have this, you're pretty much good. You don't really have to get uh the Aeonic if you don't want to. This is the weapon you want to be using the vast majority of the time. So I think that puts it in S tier. And oh, I should probably order them like that. Okay, Twashtar. So this one's actually kind of funny because I have this, and I think in the vast majority of scenarios, Thief and Dancer are using this weapon, so that puts it in the S tier. That said, it just happens that most of the places where I'm actually using my Thief these days, I end up not using it in favor of the Turret plus Gletty Knife Evisceration combo. I just happen not to use Thief in very many scenarios. I think you're either using this main hand or offhand on both Thief and Dancer, and you might even use it on Bard occasionally for certain DPS builds. So I do think that puts it in the S tier. It just happens that I personally don't end up using mine very much right now. Okay, hand to hand. These are, I think, really on the cusp between S and A as well. Basically because God hands are about equally as good. There's certain scenarios where one is better than the other, but even in those scenarios, neither one is very far ahead of the other. So, you've got about two equally good weapons per monk. Does that mean I move it down to the A tier instead of the S tier? I know a lot of monks will be mad at me if I do. On the other hand, dislikes are hidden these days. Yeah, let's piss off some monks. Okay, Armageddon. So it is basically the best white damage weapon for Ranger, and also still quite good for Corsair. It's basically never a bad weapon for either of them, and it has certain scenarios where it really shines. That said, I think for both of them, the weapons that like are what I would say are like their best weapons for those jobs would have to be their mythics in both cases. Also, I'm not a huge fan of how so it has this amazing physical white damage, but then it's boosting an elemental weapon skill. So oftentimes mobs are weak to either physical or magical. Kind of having that mix like that makes it a little less optimal for a lot of fights. But I mean, it's boosting your agility, which basically boosts all your weapon skills. So it's not like terrible for your other weapon skills. Also, Wildfire is terrible to use at 3k TP, so it kind of sucks for getting the aftermath up. I think since for both of them, I would prioritize the mythic over this, and you also for physical damage for both of them, the Aeonic is also a great option. So I think I'll put it A tier. Yeah, I think that's right. Great Axe. It's been a while since I've actually seen one of these in action. I do hear good things about it, and this Akpada set has definitely played into all of its strengths. So its white damage build is very good. However, it's not boosting that great of a weapon skill, and I think if you're trying to skill chain, the Chango is probably still better. I'm gonna go with B tier. There'll probably be some warriors that are mad at me, but again, likes have been or dislikes have been disabled, so you can yell at me in the comments, I guess. Okay, polearm. So it's a good weapon. It's it suffers a little bit from sort of the other great polearms that are available. So like if I'm trying to skill chain, the Aeonic is clearly the way to go, especially for any kind of darkness skill chain. The 4-step Umbra there is kind of unbeatable. And if I'm not skill chaining, I don't think it's keeping up with Shining One or probably even Nagling. Uh, and that leaves light skill chain is its light skill chain because it's boosting a light property weapon skill, is spamming that enough to beat perhaps the radiant skill chain of the Aeonic. Maybe it's probably really close. Um, I guess I will note all of these weapons, for the most part, are really good against mobs like Quatrubs, like this last month's Ambuscade, uh, where everyone's weapon skills are cap damage anyway, so improved white damage is better. So that means pretty much all these weapons have at least that use case, but that doesn't really help them when they're competing against each other here. Um, but it does mean that, yeah, they've all got at least that use case. Uh, I think B tier, but probably below the Great Axe is a good spot for the polearm. Um, yeah. Okay, next we have the Scythe. Um, the Scythe has gotten several improvements lately. The Scythe update gave it additional physical damage limit above and beyond any other weapon type. In addition to that, the Sakpata set greatly improved the white damage potential with this thing. It actually has greater white damage potential than the Greatsword, which I put at S tier. However, the problem is its weapon skill kind of sucks, and that definitely hurts it. I still think the Greatsword is significantly better than the Scythe. I guess there would be the debate of, is this better than Liberator now or not? And I'm not sure. However, Liberator has other uses, even if you're not actually meleeing with it. You can use it to boost your absorb spells and such. Um, so I don't know exactly what my use case would be for wanting to use Scythe for max damage, and even though I'm losing damage by not using the Great Sword and not having any other utility. But I mean, it's a solid weapon. Um, so I'm thinking B tier. Uh, yeah, I guess I'll put it above the polearm and below the Great Axe. That seems about right. Okay, the club. The club improves your curseness for removing doom. Does nothing else really. Boosts a weapon skill you generally don't care about. Um, yeah, so it's basically just for Kursna. Now, I probably previously would have rated this a lot higher, but after doing over 400 Shinrus solo, and making a holy water set that I had no difficulty with whatsoever in terms of removing Doom every time for all of those hundreds of fights, I'm pretty comfortable actually giving this putting this down and see. I don't think I would ever ask a white mage to make this. If you make it, great, you know. But if I'm really worried about Doom, I'll just use my holy water set and deal with that. And the holy water set didn't cost very much time or money to make, so uh, I think there's this is unnecessary for the most part. Um, Also, if you have to choose between using this and using your mythic to make it AoE, in a lot of fights where you might have to worry about like AoE dooms and such, you're gonna probably prefer the AoE. Although I think it might work in the offhand if you dual wield it, but then how often are you in the right sub to dual wield? Anyways, I think I put the club in C tier. I mean, it's good at what it does, but I don't think what it does is really necessary. Okay, the bow. Um, so there's some things I like about the bow. There's some things I don't like about the bow. Uh, One thing I do like about the bow more than the gun, because they actually are in direct competition here, is it has a physical weapon skill to go along with boosting your physical white damage. That's nice, and it's actually pretty much the best weapon skill for archery. Problem is, it's dex based, and they put dex on the bow. Dex has no other effect on ranged attacks whatsoever, which really kind of sucks. Although that it does mean if for whatever reason you're using like evisceration or something, you can equip this and have a pile of decks to help out, and other shenanigans like that. Um, I mean, I do actually have it, and I do actually use it from time to time. Uh, I think I put it at C tier. It's somewhat disappointing. It's not bad. I mean, none of these weapons are really like terrible for the most part. Um, but I would say it's worse than the other options. Um, there are some very specific scenarios where it should be able to beat the gun. Um, but it's hard to make those scenarios actually happen. Okay, and next we have the bow's favorite companion, the katana that they put agility on, which the bow wishes it had, and the katana wishes it had the dex. Um, so yeah, I think it's also a deeply troubled weapon. It it's really nice for this last month's ambuscade again, because all these weapons are nice. But ninja being one of the preferred jobs for this last month's ambuscade makes it a little bit more appealing for that. Unfortunately, they made that ambuscade so much harder. I mean, we didn't farm very much at all, so I don't know that I would tell anyone to make this weapon for that one ambuscade. Um, and other than that, I mean, it's really hard to find uses for it because it's been given agility and not something like dex or strength or heck, even like intelligence or something. It's not a very good offhand weapon. Um, I've considered playing around with it just for lowering TP feed because that is one effect of agility. But there's largely better options for that now. Um, yeah, it's very niche to actually use it. Again, it's at a point where I don't think I would tell anyone to make it. Okay, next we have the axe. Um, Usable by both beast and warrior. For Beastmaster, I think you prefer the mythic in most scenarios because it's both boosting your pet as well as boosting another elemental weapon skill. So unless you specifically want lightning damage as opposed to light damage, I think this is probably not necessary for Beastmaster. Um, Especially since you can do a lot more to boost your light damage. There's more affinity available. Um, I do think this does still have the use of probably being the best elemental weapon skill weapon for warrior if you're just trying to do a single target elemental weapon skill. That said, it's not that amazing. Um, and outside of that niche use, which again is a little weird because you know your aftermath is boosting your physical damage, but you've got this elemental weapon skill. Um, I'm not seeing a lot of uses for it. Um, I guess closer to the top of C tier is about right. Okay, next we have Almace. How the Mighty Have Fallen. Um, so I mean, CDC is just not very good these days. It's fallen way behind Savage Blade. The gear we've been getting has only been further boosting Savage Blade further and further ahead of this. Uh, I mean, there's always the chance of it coming back. It CDC has great skill chaining properties that are very useful. Um, so it still gets seen some, but in most cases, you'd rather just use a nagling. Uh, yeah, I really struggle to see any scenario where I would want to use this over some kind of nagling build on those jobs. And they gave it dex, they didn't give it strength. I mean, dex is good for what it's trying to do, but it doesn't help with your other weapon skills, so that makes it not very good for offhanding. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go D tier with that, which is amazing. Like, once upon a time, it was one of the best weapons, especially in Abyssia era. Crit weapon skills were bonkers, and it made that weapon amazing, but it's not in a good place right now. Okay, the staff. The staff does have some very niche uses. Um, I know people get excited. It has like what 50 fast cast on it. Problem is the jobs that can use it, you should be able to cap your fast cast without that. In fact, for most of those jobs, I would very much avoid swapping weapons for fast cast. I want access to my TP to use for other things, such as Merker or potentially some other weapon skills. So what is its use case? Well, its main use case that I see is recast time reduction, especially for spells like stun. That said, its magic accuracy isn't that amazing. You can certainly get higher on other Remo weapons. So it helps you cap out your recast timers uh, while requiring slightly less haste than your other options, and that's about all it gives you. If with full haste, you can cap out your recast timers without this. So that's pretty darn niche for to make a whole weapon. So yeah, I'm putting that in D tier as well. What prompted this whole video was when I looked over at the rewards for this next month's login campaign. I see down here in the 1,000 category all these lovely items that are used for making Empyrean weapons. Now they're here specifically because we're looking at getting Empyrean armor +2 coming out the month after this, and so they wanted us to have these items because you use them also for upgrading the armor. So if you don't have all your armor upgraded, go ahead and take advantage of this, get your armor all upgraded to +1 so that you're ready to go to +2, because it's looking like they're going to have really good stats and you're going to want most of your gear to be +2. But a trick that some people use, specifically for Chloris buds and Glavoid shells, because I think these are the only two that are big enough hassle to be worth this, is you buy additional character slots, all the way up to 16, the max, and you log them in every day to get login points, and then you spend your login points on these, and if you do this for enough characters, you can actually get all the Chloris buds or Glavoid shells you need over the course of a month, and Square Enix gets to make some extra cash. Which is why it's been a little surprising they haven't done this more often. It's been over 3 years since we've had this, which does kind of go against all the people who are going, oh, Square Enix is going pay to win. It's like, well, if they wanted to, they could have been doing this all the time, but they've been choosing not to. So clearly they don't like that people are using taking advantage of this to do certain weapons. On the other hand, those two NMs are super annoying, so I totally understand choosing to pay a few dollars to do a different annoying activity, which is logging in a whole army of characters every day to get around having to fight those. Although it also takes a lot more time in terms of it's going to be a month before you get your weapon. If you want to just farm up these items hardcore, you can be done in like 2 or 3 days. So it's not really much of a advantage, but it can be less annoying to do it this way. So there's definitely a lot of people who do that. But we need to talk about how to actually do it optimally. So when it comes to actually getting the most out of these login points on these additional characters that you create for this, a lot of people will just make a new character and then leave it logged in till the end of the month and then get all the items they can. Unfortunately, if it's a brand new character, you're only getting 2 items per character this way, and you're not actually going to finish getting all of the Glavoid or Chloris buds you need. So there is another option here, though. Because the first day you log in with a character, you get 500 points as opposed to 100 points you get on all the other days. So if on the first day you get 500 points, and then over the next 5 days you get another 500, then you have 1,000 points on your 6th day. And so then you get your item, you mail it over to your main character. Now you delete the character that you made for this. Be very careful to not delete the wrong characters. You want to keep your main character there. You don't want to accidentally delete that. If you're half asleep or something, just put it off. You have actually 2 days to spare on the schedule, so it's fine if you miss a day. And then, anyways, on the same day that you delete the character, you can make a new character. It gets 500 points. Another 5 days, and then you're at 1,000, and you repeat. And so in this way, you can have plenty of time. The campaign ends on the 2nd to get 4 items on a brand new character. Now, even better, there are people who have pre-made their characters in preparation for this event, and so they can have up to 1,500 points stored up on their characters already. And if they intend to only use those characters for this, then they can, on the first day, they get their 500 bonus points. They'll be at 2k. You spend that 2k, you get 2 items, you delete that character, you make a new character, and you continue on this path. So if you've prepared ahead of time, instead of getting 4 items, you can actually get 6 per character slot. So hopefully this can save you a little bit of money, potentially. You might not need as many character slots if you use this strategy, although it is a little bit more time and effort. And again, is this pay to win? Kinda, but you're not really winning. You're paying to have an alternate method that maybe takes a little bit less total playtime, but takes longer to get, and is maybe slightly less annoying than Glavoid and Chloris, but not by a lot. And I'd say it's more annoying than farming up any of the others. So I would not use this method for anything but Glavoid or Chloris. But there you go. Hopefully that saves you a bit. Okay, making one last look at our tier list, keeping in mind that we want to highlight which ones are Glavoid and Chloris. Dwashtar is Glavoid. Chloris Buds for the hand-to-hand. Great Axe Glavoid. Scythe, I believe, is Chloris. Yep. Also Chloris for the polearm. Those are all. So, the ones I would focus on for this campaign would be the dagger, the hand-to-hand, and any of these. So if you want any of those weapons, this is the campaign to take advantage of to get those. Otherwise, I would pretty much say just go ahead and farm them the normal way. Perhaps just getting a few extra items from login points if you have them available. But I would not go through the effort of creating new characters and all that just to get any of the other weapons.